I the a-hole for exposing my friend's reason for a cash bar at her wedding? I, 40s female, have a friend 40s female who recently got married. I'm close enough to her to have been in her wedding. When we were planning her wedding with her, she kept mentioning how she was on a budget. Thankfully, she has connections and was able to put together an amazing dream wedding within her budget. With a guest list of about 200 people, they invited 300, but 200 RSVP'd yes. Her venue was a gift from her uncle who owns a wedding venue in New England. Her catering was gifted to her from a friend who owns an amazing restaurant. Her flowers were a gift from her aunt who is a florist. The rings were heavily discounted from a friend who works for a jewelry company and let her use their discount, so they paid cost. Her DJ and photographer were also gifts, as one of the members of the wedding party has a family event entertainment business. I guess what I'm trying to convey is that a lot of her wedding was gifted to her. Her largest expenses with the wedding were her dress and the rings. No shade, the wedding was amazing. She looked stunning and everyone had a fantastic time. At the wedding itself, there was a cash bar. The bride and groom aren't big drinkers, so I can totally get why they wouldn't want to fund anyone else's total buzz on their dime, especially when they were trying so hard to save for their honeymoon. After their wedding, they had saved enough to be able to honeymoon for a month in Italy. Roughly 2 months after their wedding, she and I got together for dinner. She showed me pictures from her honeymoon, and they were gorgeous. I told her again how happy I was for her, and we ordered. About halfway through dinner, she dropped a bomb on me, and I was absolutely stunned. Actually, I was pissed. She told me that a family member of hers owned a liquor store and gifted all the alcohol for her wedding to them. All she had to do was find someone to be the bartender. She asked one of the event bartenders at her uncle's venue if they wanted to make some extra cash. She offered them $20 an hour, plus tips, and then told all of her guests that the bar was cash. And they used the money towards their honeymoon fund. Her reception lasted roughly 4 hours. I went up to bar a few times, and because she set the prices as standard, I probably spent about $100 on 4 or 5 drinks plus tips. With 200 guests, some were drinking more, some were drinking less. If I use my amount and average it out, she made roughly $20,000 on her wedding. That doesn't include the gifts people gave her. I personally gave her a $200 check. I realize these numbers are speculation, but that's all I have to go on since she didn't give me an actual amount. She did say that the bar money covered a lot of the honeymoon. I was seeing red. I got up from the table and told her that since she made so much money off of me, she could cover my dinner. Then I texted the bridal party group chat and told them what she told me. The chat blew up, as I wasn't the only one that was miffed. This is where I think I might be the a-hole. I didn't have to tell everyone else what she said, and I didn't have to walk out of dinner. But a-hole or not, I know that I probably can't look past this and will continue this friendship. But I also don't know if I should try to mitigate the fallout with the rest of the friend group, because it wasn't my information to share. So please tell me, am I the a-hole? Edit. I went to sleep and woke up to way more comments than I can keep up with. I just wanted to thank everyone for their input. I'm going to answer the most common questions here. 1. How does she have so many connections? Both families are successful. If this had been her first wedding, her parents would have paid for the whole thing as a gift, although they would have also used the same connections to price it down. 2. What did she do as I left the restaurant? She followed me to the door trying to explain, but I was so upset that I just kept telling her that I didn't want to hear what she had to say. She couldn't leave with me because, like I said, I left her with a bill. 3. Was the family member who donated the liquor okay with her charging? I don't have the answer to this. Like I said, I didn't listen to her explanation, so maybe they were and maybe they weren't. Your guess is as good as mine. I need space from our friendship, but I don't know that it is completely over. Thank you again. Now for the comments. Not a-hole. This friend of yours is pretty much manipulating everybody at the wedding into paying for her honeymoon quite selfishly, when many of you already spent pretty big sums of money on gifts for the scum. Yeah, in addition to my gift and bar tab, I also paid $300 for my bridesmaid dress. I didn't include that in the post because I think it's pretty standard for bridesmaids to buy their own dresses, but I was still irritated. Dude, add in everything else that you paid for that wedding as well. I've spent close to $1,000 being a bridesmaid between all the different events, etc. If I was one of the friends, who was also a vendor, I would be seething right now. Not the a-hole. So many people contributed services and things for the wedding, but then she charged premium prices for a cash bar? Not cool on her part. Thank you. It is definitely a large part of what made it so sour in my mouth. We kept telling her to scale back on the wedding because of her budget, but I guess we didn't have all the information. Not the a-hole. From the sound of it, she had no budget and everything was handed to her, including her honeymoon. Everything was gifted to her except her dress and rings. That's not much of a wedding budget. Manipulating your guests into spending more money so you don't have to is low. She deserves your anger and dismissal. Not the a-hole. I'm of the opinion that if you didn't want me to tell people about your actions, you probably shouldn't have done it in the first place. Her embarrassment is her own fault, not yours. She actually doesn't seem embarrassed at all. I only thought I was an a-hole because of how the information I gave made our other friends feel. She's been responding in our group chat that we are all jealous because she had her dream wedding with her dream honeymoon and her dream husband. Like I said, I'm done with this friendship. I just felt bad for ruining it for everyone else. Although I guess what did I really ruin, right? Why would she be embarrassed? If she's willing to treat people like this, do you really think she'd care what they think or how they feel? She got what she wanted. She doesn't need any of you now. By the way, not the a-hole in your part. Next story. Am I the a-hole for involving my frat bro's dad into the debt he owes me? For background, I, 23 male, currently live with my fraternity brothers in this college town. We live in a 3x3. Originally, one of our brothers, Carl, 27 male, was in charge of paying the rent every month. We would send him our share of the rent, and he would pay our landlord in full. Back in February, I was approved for the Built card, which prides itself in giving points and waiving fees for paying rent. I asked Carl if I could take over the rent from there on, and he agreed. That same day, he also asked me if I could speak with him and the other roommates that afternoon. Weird, but I said I can be there. I come to pay for March's rent, and the landlord makes a group chat with all of us and states, "Thank you for your payment of $1,150. Last month I had only received a payment of $150. There is a late fee of $50, so I would still be owed $1,050 for February. I will take that $1,050 from the payment recently made and apply the excess $100 for March's rent. For March, I would still need $1,050 for rent. Be sure this is paid before the 5th to avoid late fee." After receiving this message, I immediately called my roommate. I spoke with him on the phone and at home. I voiced my feelings of distrust and concern because I would have assumed he could come to us, his brothers. The household spoke with him as well. Reluctantly, I fronted the money, but I told Carl, "You owe me, and I'm not saying pay me back in full in a week, but please place some effort into repaying me." Currently, I am owed over $1,500 due to him being unable to pay his portion of rent. Carl does theater and has many practices as this is his major. But due to these practices, he has apparently cut hours while at work these past months. I was only made aware of this by one of our other roommates who works with Carl and was asked to cover multiple shifts. Carl also goes out with friends 1 to 2 times a month. I'm all for enjoying life and treating yourself, but it does feel wrong to me that he goes out when he can save money to pay off his debts or have his responsibilities in line. About once a week since this began, I've spoken with him about how it is going and how he's making money coming along, since I've only been paid $40 back for everything he owes me as of late. His plan is mostly revolved around trying to get loans or financial aid, but plans never seem to fall through. My final straw was when he went to Las Vegas in May. By that point, I was fed up. His father is a part of the fraternity as well, so I contact Carl's dad about the situation and my concerns that I will not be repaid the $2,000 I'm owed because his son does not make an effort to repay me, and I've tried to be nothing but respectful until this point. Currently, there is tension in the household, and Carl rarely comes to hang out with us if I'm involved. And if I appear in the living room, he will either do a chore or go to his room. I don't want this to happen, but I can only imagine owing your roommate $2,000. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. That is a lot of money at that age, and you went way above and beyond being patient with Carl. Not your fault he can't get his act together. If getting the dad involved gets you paid, I'm all for it. That's a lot of money at any age. Yeah, he does this to a non-brother in the real world. He's going to get hauled into small claims court and get his wages garnished. Info. Why are you the only one covering Carl's rent? Why aren't the other frat brothers helping? Sounds like you all need to discuss Carl's future as a roommate, since he can't keep up with his share. In terms of the roommates, everyone else is part-time and a full-time student. So they live paycheck to paycheck, but they're able to balance it out and budget. I'm the only full-time worker with a decent pay. I can make a savings account and be fine if I get fired or laid off. So they cannot really contribute, but I'm just happy they can sustain themselves and can budget. In terms of others in the frat, he owes about 3 other brothers money. Not as much as me, but he still owes them each like over $300. I was not made aware of this until after the fact. We have discussed our concerns with Carl. Because our lease is up by the end of July, we've told him how we're concerned that 1. These debts wouldn't be paid and it's truly unjust. 2. That this is a habit we cannot break. At least here in this town, we care about him and will give it to him straight. He plans to move to New York City after graduation in December, and I have told him that I'm concerned if this keeps going, he'll face worse consequences. Not a-hole, but you guys are going real soft on him. In my fraternity, you got 1 strike when it came to debts. Strike 2 was a come to Jesus talk. Strike 3 was a character assassination until compliance was achieved. My brother said in the army, strike 3 was they'd beat the heck out of said person and called it a training accident. Last story. Am I the a-hole for agreeing to babysit my friend's kids on my day off? My boyfriend, male 36, and I, female 29, have been together for a year. We moved together last month. We don't have kids, and we are not planning on having them. Both of us work 5 days a week, but my days off are always Thursday and Friday, while his days off varies from week to week, so our days don't always match. And it's possible that they don't match for weeks or even couple of months if we are unlucky enough. So last week, my boyfriend's days off were Friday and Saturday, and mine as usual were Thursday and Friday, which meant both of us were free on Friday, and we were pretty excited to enjoy our day off together. It was our first day off together since we moved together. We didn't have anything planned, but I was looking forward to laze around with him the entire day. Friday at 2 a.m., I received a call from my best friend, female 29. She was crying because her husband, a truck driver, was in a traffic accident. The accident was in a city 8 hours away, and he was taken to the nearest hospital in a really bad shape. My friend said she and her mother-in-law wanted to leave to the hospital right now, so they could be there by mid-morning. My best friend has a 10-month-old son, and she said she obviously can't get a hold of her usual babysitter at 2 a.m., so she asked me if I can watch her son for a few hours until she can reach her babysitter. Now, I'm also not a huge fan of kids, especially babies. I don't know how to deal with them. But this is an emergency, and I understand it's probably impossible to get a babysitter at 2 a.m. My friend had never asked me to babysit before, as she knows I'm not good with the kids. But this is an emergency, and what are friends for, right? So I said yes, and I told her she could drop the baby at my place. As soon as I disconnected a call, my boyfriend told me he couldn't believe I agreed to babysit, and that he didn't want a screaming baby in our house, that it would ruin his day. I agreed he shouldn't be forced to interact with a kid against his will. After all, I was the one who agreed to babysit. So I called my friend and told her I will babysit at her place instead. My boyfriend got angry at me again, but I left anyway and went to my friend's place. My friend called the babysitter at 8 a.m., but she said she wasn't available until noon. So I ended up babysitting from 2 a.m. until noon. When I returned to my place, my boyfriend was still angry at me. He said I ruined our day off together, as I was missing half the day to go babysit a kid that's not even mine. I tried to explain that I was just trying to help my friend. He has been ignoring me since Friday. He said it was clear to me my best friend is more important than him, as I picked helping her over spending the day with him. I told him it was not a matter of who is more important, but he is still upset. I understand I missed half a day off with him, and that we might not get another for a few weeks, but I think it was a special circumstance. My best friend needed my help. Am I the a-hole? Edit for info. Yes, I did told him that my bestie's husband was in an accident. We didn't have anything planned except for sleeping in and laze around the entire day. My bestie's husband was in ICU until Monday morning. He was moved to another ward and is expected to make a full recovery. My friend and her mother-in-law are still by his side. I didn't need to babysit the baby again after I gave him to the babysitter Friday noon, as the baby's other grandma, my best friend's mom, flew to our city the next day to pick up her grandkid, and the baby is staying with her during this situation. Not the a-hole. Might want to reconsider that relationship if this is how he reacts when you help someone in an emergency. Not the a-hole. Exactly. If your partner is going to act like that and give you hell in such a traumatic situation that has to do with someone very important to you, like your best friend, maybe you're better off without him. Red flag. Even if you're only friends with someone like him, would make sense to reconsider. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry, but this is bringing up a ton of red flags. He is acting incredibly immature. You helped a friend in need, and it kept your part of your promise to not force the baby on him. You went to her apartment and took the baby there. It's not like the parents were going out to party or date. There was an emergency, and no one else was able to care for the child in the meantime. I implore you rethink this relationship. Because if this is how he acts when he doesn't get his way over something as small as not seeing you for a few hours, I'd rather not stick around when he doesn't get his way for bigger things. Run. Yep, not seeing a shred of empathy from him. Seems to only care about his needs. Not the a-hole. You could have been together on Friday if he was mature enough to understand the circumstances of your decision. In that case, you would be at your home and will have a helping hand. I understand a screaming baby could put off some people, but he can just switch rooms. And considering that it was his day off, he shouldn't be angry about seeing a baby. I don't see a problem here being you. Helping someone for a few hours in their time of trouble is what a friend does, and a partner is responsible for his other half to take care of you. Consider this a red flag. There could be a past trauma or something affecting his decision-making. I think if you end up marrying him, he can just leave you when you are sick or in trouble, as he doesn't like your friends visiting you at a hospital or something. Sorry to say this, but I would advise you to clear things up before moving ahead with your relationship. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents I am willing to sell them my forgiveness? My parents expected me to be independent the minute I turned 18. They gave me the money they have saved up for my education, and they started charging me rent about $500 a month. I was lucky enough to have a partial scholarship, and I found a job in the city my university was in, so I moved there before the school year began. With my parents' money, my scholarship, and my wages, I was able to scrape by. I rarely, if I ever, spoke with my parents, as I was kind of busy. I guess they decided that they didn't want that kind of relationship with my younger siblings because they were not presented with the same option. They both lived at home all through university and even afterwards. I got $5,000, while my brother and sister got their school paid for. I am 34 now, with a decent job and a great girlfriend whom I will be marrying this summer. I sent my parents and siblings an invitation. They called me to ask why they were not involved in the wedding. I responded that they hadn't really been part of my life in 16 years, and that I was being nice by inviting them. They said that they acknowledged that they made mistakes when I was young, but that it was in the past, and that I should get over it. Against my fiancé's advice, I sent an itemized bill for everything I paid for myself that they freely gave my brother and sister. And I said if they wanted to be a part of my life, they had to ante up. They said that they cannot afford that because they are in debt still from helping my siblings out. I just laughed at that and said I hoped that I would see them at the wedding and hung up. Now my family are all getting a hold of me to let me know how much I'm hurting my parents. The thing is that I don't want their money, and I don't want anything from them at all other than their attendance at my wedding. If they can't do that, then I'm fine with our yearly phone call. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Maybe the itemized bill was a bit much, but I imagine it was cathartic for you. Your parents haven't been around in a decade and a half. They have a lot of nerve to ask to be involved. Not being involved in your wedding is just reaping what they sowed. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding. Yeah, it is an a-hole move in a vacuum, but this is more about catharsis and appropriate response. I find this way is one of those really good ideas for dealing with crazy people. I need help with one detail. Is this the first time his family contacted him in 16 years? After the wedding invite? Because wow. I mean, it's not the a-hole all day long, even if sending a list is spiteful. But 1, it is an understandable spite. And 2, this is am I the a-hole, not am I spiteful? They said that they cannot afford that because they are in debt still from helping my siblings out. I'm sorry, what? Then why did they do it in the first place? Not Yeholopi. Perhaps siblings can pay back now. If their perceived choice was going into debt to support their adult kids or lose almost all contact with them like OP, it's not surprising they picked debt. Of course, the reality is the choice was a bit less extreme. Let them live at home rent-free and pay what they could without going into debt. I mean, there's a middle ground that the parents haven't quite figured out. The lack of contact is also a choice that's not financial, because they could have at least checked on OP more, even if they cut him off financially. It sounds like they emotionally cut him out too. Even if OP was upset over the financial cut-off, they should have kept reaching out, because why he was upset was understandable. The way OP explains it, it seems he was the one to cut off contact. I was kind of busy, not they never called or they were kind of busy. Because he was busy fending for himself after his parents cut him off and gave him no help. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to rotate events between my parents? It's a tale as old as time. My parents stayed together for the kids. They got divorced 5 years ago, basically the second my youngest sibling left for college. I, 35 female, am married with kids of my own, and nothing much changed for us other than now seeing my parents separately for the most part. I have 4 kids, all in elementary or middle school. This means we have lots of stuff going on, from school plays to sports matches to recitals. My parents are active and involved grandparents, and they both try to come to as many of these things as possible. We had, of course, about 2 years where these things were not really happening so much, but now we're finally back to a normal schedule, and these types of things are back on. For some reason, my parents' divorce proceedings have dragged on for longer than they should have, and the financial stuff is still being hashed out. Unfortunately, it has gone from relatively civil to hostile. I'm not taking sides. I love both my parents, as do my kids, and their divorce is not my business. But lately, my dad has been saying he doesn't want to go to places where my mom is going to be, and has asked if he can rotate the grandchild events with her. I understand him not wanting to interact with her. That's fine. But he can easily attend these things without having to. He can sit on the other side of the bleachers or auditorium and never even see her. My mom is perfectly content to do just that, and doesn't want to have to miss anything. This is all dad. I told him there's really no reason he can't go to, say, a school play, and just sit as far away from mom as possible. She doesn't want to talk to him either, and neither are the type to ever make a scene. So no, I'm not going to make a rotation. They are both invited to all of these things, and dad is free to go or not. His choice. Needless to say, dad is not pleased. Mom thinks it's perfectly fair, but she's obviously biased. Husband agrees with me. One brother agrees with me, but that's because he's likely proposing soon, and is worried about dad being like this for all the wedding-related events. My other siblings are younger and don't really have that sort of thing on their minds, and are saying I'm being unfair to dad. But maybe they have a point? Am I the a-hole for how I'm handling this? Not the a-hole. Your parents, particularly your dad, need to do better for their grandkids if they want to be involved in your life. It sounds like you are being incredibly respectful of the divorce, not taking sides, etc. Rotating events also creates huge logistical problems. You can't rotate one-off events like graduations, etc. All that's going to end up happening if you do is you create a whole new set of problems where someone complains that grandparent A got to go to XYZ, and they were way more important than the events grandparent B got invited to. Or at Christmas, grandparent A has somewhere else they can go, but it's their turn, even though it might be better to have grandparent B. Not to mention that a parent with a million kid activities to coordinate doesn't need to worry about even more logistics for each event, big or small, for no good reason. Not a-hole. Your dad's acting like a petulant child. And your younger sibs are wrong. If granddad doesn't want to see grandma, then granddad better question the love for his grandkids. He's there for the kids. If he can't look at that way, then it's a personal problem. Your younger sibs don't see it this way because they don't have kids yet. It's weird, but once you have kids, you realize that you do a lot of things for your children and grandchildren. And a mature person would see that sometimes compromises have to be made, and you may not like it, but you want to be there to support them. Definitely true about having to think about kids. Though my brother, who's planning to propose soon, doesn't have kids, but is thinking like me because he doesn't want to be in a position of having to choose which parents attends his engagement party and wedding. And he wants kids, so I bet he's thinking about what will be when he does have them. I think the situation would be different if it was an abusive marriage. If this is all just pettiness or resentment, then it's on your dad to decide what's more important, being an active father and grandparent, or trying to punish your mom by having her barred from family events. Whether he views it as his punishment or not, that's what it is. Give it time. Don't uninvite anyone and he should come around. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she needs to pay for childcare or I'm not going to her wedding? My female 25 sister's wedding, female 28, is in a couple months. She recently sent out invitations. I was invited as a regular guest, not a bridesmaid or maid of honor, since we live a state apart. And obviously, there's a certain level of involvement and time that goes into being part of a bridal party, which I understand. I want to be there for my sister, and obviously I'd like to see her get married. But the problem is, I'm a single mom. My son is 6, and when he's not at school, I need to be home watching him. So being out for hours at a time isn't really in the cards for me right now. My sister's wedding is child-free too. Since it's taking place in her state, I'd need to commute. And I'd probably have to be gone from my house for 2 full days. I can't have family watch my son since they'll all be at the wedding. And I don't really have friends who will babysit for 2 days. I contacted my sister and asked if she'd be willing to let my son come to the wedding with me and explained he couldn't be left alone so young and that I didn't have anyone to watch him. She responded by telling me her no children policy was strict and she wouldn't make exceptions. I explained my situation again and said I need some form of childcare or to bring him with me. I then asked her if she could pay me to hire a nanny or babysitter to watch him. She got offended and said children and weddings are both parts of life and I need to just figure it out. It's my kid, my problem. Which sure, that's true. But also her wedding and her making it a problem by not allowing me to bring my kid. I told her she could either pay for my childcare or I wouldn't be going to her wedding, which all she did was call me ridiculous and entitled. She said she shouldn't have to pay for my child, and that part of being an adult is knowing how to take care of that kind of thing. I think that's ridiculous. Money is tight. Childcare is expensive. I can't magically afford for someone to watch my 6-year-old, and most people would just let me bring him to the wedding. My sister says she's definitely not paying for childcare, and I guess you're not going to the wedding then. And now, my whole family is mad at me for not being there for my sister. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I'm not trying to force my sister to pay for anything, and it's totally fine if I can't come. She accepts that, and I just don't go. It only became a problem when my entire family came after me for not going to the wedding. I'm not mad at my sister for not paying. I'm mad at her for turning the family against me and saying I don't want to come to the wedding, and complaining about me behind my back to my parents. She complained about me not going to the wedding as if I was purposely avoiding it. Now for the comments. You're the a-hole. I get where you're coming from, but you went about this all wrong. I'm sorry, but it's not within my budget to travel so far. And also arrange to pay for childcare when I get there. I said my best. Full stop. Don't ask for handouts from a stressed out bride. Is that what people do? Good Lord. If she's gracious, she or the family will offer a solution. But you don't ask for that. That's where the entitlement came from. In the end, the kid is your responsibility, no one else's. Everyone sucks here. OP has no right to demand childcare. It's her child and her responsibility, not her sister's. But her sister also has no right to be angry at her sister for not coming. She can choose to have a child-free wedding, but she cannot demand that people with children attend. It doesn't sound like the sister is upset if OP doesn't attend. She was only upset at OP's demand that she pay. It does seem that she sent her flying monkeys to shame her sister for not showing up. She also seemed comfortable telling her sister how to parent. Everyone sucks here for different reasons. You're the a-hole. It's no one else's responsibility to pay for your childcare. Completely unreasonable ask. Asking a bride to stay away, your sister of all people, to pay for childcare for a night or two so you can attend their special event is not unreasonable at all between sisters? Like, hey sis, I can't afford this thing. Do you really want me there? If so, I have to ask, can you pay for the childcare so I can attend? Otherwise, I may just have to bow out. If the conversation went like this and OP's sister reacted with her stress and psycho in the moment, it might be fine. But OP wasn't asking unreasonable things. This is across state lines. A travel wedding and a sister who's not even a part of the wedding party. It didn't have to be a screaming match. It could have been, oh no sis, I can't pay for that with all the wedding expenses. I'm so sorry you can't come. Like, what planet are we living on that is abnormal to ask a sister for help in a situation they're being put in by their sister? What the heck? Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to cut my hair for my sister's wedding? I, 23 female, have a long golden hair that is down to my mid-thigh. I'm 5'4", and I've been growing it out for a really long time. I had waist-long golden blonde hair at 14, and I was friends with this one girl who would often tell me how damaged and frizzy it was, and how it would look so much nicer if I cut it short. It was then brown as I had cut it, and I felt that it looked plain and not healthier. Having long or frizzy hair doesn't automatically mean it's damaged. I later learned that she was jealous and sabotaging me, and decided I'd never listen to hair advice again. Now, my sister, 25 female, is getting married. We are all very excited. Last week, she pulled me aside and said my hair is too long. It looks bad, and she doesn't want it in her wedding photos. I thought it was really rude, but I told her I'd wear it up. She said it's too long to wear up, and even when I wear it up, it looks too big for my head and body. I told her that's fine, I won't be in the photos. She told me I'm bound to be in the photos if I'm there, so I told her I won't go as I'm not cutting my hair. My family are not only agreeing with her saying it's her big day, but also saying other things like I won't be able to get a job, I look scruffy, I'm getting old to have hair that long and demanding I cut it. I want to be clear, my hair is no longer frizzy. I use good shampoo for wavy hair so it's long and wavy. It's also thick so it isn't thinning. It's very shiny and I take good care of it, and get trimmed so there's no split ends. I get a lot of compliments towards my hair, and I've never had any trouble with working, and I see no reason to cut it other than the wedding, which I'm not willing to do. I suspect my sister is jealous and doesn't want my hair to take away her attention, but of course, she can't outright say that. Even if your hair is frizzy, they have no right to even request, let alone demand such a thing. Not the a-hole. Exactly. I have a curly hair and sometimes it is frizzy, but other people just have to deal with it when that happens. Don't cut your hair for anyone else but yourself. If you want to do it, then it's fine to cut it. If you don't, then you shouldn't. You couldn't ask your sister to dye her hair blonde/brown/black/pink/golden because that would look better with her dress on her wedding day. So why should she be the one telling others to change anything about their appearances? She either wants you there or she doesn't. Same. 3A/3B hair, and I'm sick of people having an issue and making comments on days it's frizzy. Not the a-hole. This obsession some brides have over their wedding photos is really unhealthy and bizarre to me. You just have natural long hair. She should get over it. The irony is that most of the time the photos are forgotten about after the first couple of years. I had a bridesmaid that decided her super pale skin needed a spray tan 24 hours before the wedding. She also went nuclear blonde and neon green nail polish with the deep purple bridesmaid dresses. There was nothing I could do on the day of, so I rolled with it. But I do make a point of reminding her of how she looked, and is now mortified by it, because the goal was as much attention as possible. Keep your hair, the pictures won't matter down the road. Not a-hole. I'm very sorry for this misfortune, but the description of your bridesmaid had me rolling. Oh, I have one photo up from my wedding 20 plus years ago. I still giggle whenever I look at it. She did it to herself. Beautiful dress, Cheeto skin, nuclear blonde hair, and that nail polish. She thought she looked good, but everyone else was wondering what was up with the bridesmaid who missed the look. Since I wanted a marriage more than I wanted a wedding, I wasn't thrilled, but the idea of freaking out on her would have helped anyone on the day of.